a title economist would suggest. I started my career as a Latin teacher, so I warned people I've got all my boring lectures out of my system already, so I got all sorts of really great lectures left in my bank. I also, when I talk to people, I tell them I'm an economist, and it's normally I hear two responses. The first normally is their eyes kind of fade, and they're like, oh, yeah, I hated economics. I took a class in college, and yeah, I hated it. The second response is what I call an economic confession. They start pouring out what they're doing. And often I hear they say, you know, I'm working 40 hours a week, but I haven't got a raise for several years. You know, the price of gas, the price of higher ed is really killing me. I just don't feel like I'm getting ahead. And I read in the paper that Colorado has one of the fastest growing economies, but I am not feeling it. And as an economist, I can always add data to everything. And I'm normally able to add the data to their situation. It doesn't make them feel better, because the data is actually really disappointing. But it also makes them feel that they're not alone. There's a lot of low-wage workers and a lot of middle-class workers that have not seen their real wages increase for several decades. And this is some of the data I'm going to show you here shortly. And at the end of the lecture, we're going to throw some limes around the church. So stay tuned. So we'll start off with some general data on income inequality. This is the gap between what the poorest people make in Colorado versus the wealthiest. And when we talk about income inequality, we normally divide the earners into five groups, or quintiles. So the bottom 20% is the first quintile, and the next 20% of earners, and then the next 20% of earners, and then the next 20%, and the top 20%. And by looking at it by quintiles, you can see the portion of their wages or income that each quintile has received over the last several decades. So if we were at a place where we had perfect no inequality, so everyone earned the same, each quintile would earn 20% of income. So 20% of people would earn 20% of income. That would be perfect, no inequality. Here's what it looked like in the late 70s. So the bottom 20% earned about 8% of total income in Colorado, and the top 20% earned about 35%, 36% in the late 70s. Now let's fast forward to 2005. You can see the incomes of the lowest quintiles fallen, share of income fallen, 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 and all the gains have gone to the top earners. It's even worse when we look at just after the recovery from the Great Recession. The distribution of income has gotten worse, with the lower income fallen, a little bit higher, and all the gains have gone mostly to the top 20% of income earners in Colorado. We're actually at a point where the top 1% earns more than 20% of all income in Colorado. And this level hasn't been seen since before 1928. If you know your history, preceded a pretty poor time in the national economy. Here's another way of looking at it, is an infographic of the drop in real wages between the lowest 20% since the mid-90s to the mid-2000s. You can see the poorest earners in Colorado have actually lost ground in their wages by about 12%. They've seen their wages fall by about 12% when you adjust for inflation. Whereas the richest earners in Colorado have seen their incomes go up about 14%. What's also scary is that the middle class, generally the driver of the economy, has also seen their wages pretty much stagnate over the last several decades. Another way of looking at wage stagnation or income inequality is to look at wages, not just income, just look at wages. And here we look at wages by tenths. So we divide the lowest earners, who make the smallest amount of wages, into the first 10%, and another 10%, and another 10%, and another 10%. And then you look at how their wages have changed, these percentiles, over time. And I set the base year at 2000, and I plotted the percent change in their real wages since 2000. As you can see, the lowest earners in Colorado, the 10th and the 20th percentile earners, these are lower wage earners, have seen their real wages fall by close to 8%, right around 8% in real terms. It means inflation, each year inflation goes up, their wages stagnating or even falling, and in real terms they have a lot less money to spend in the local economy because their wages are just not keeping pace with inflation. Also scary is that the middle class, the 50% percentile earners, have seen their real wages actually decline since 2000. Where at the same time, the highest income earners, the 90th percentile earners, has seen their wages go up nearly 17%. So a lot of unequal growth in income and wages over the past several decades. This is a handout that was in the back. If you don't have a copy, it's kind of hard to see. I have a couple extra copies here. If anyone needs any, it'll be easier to see. But in a time where no one wants to really read reports, especially from economists, we've got to find ways to make fancy infographics that can spread on Facebook and Twitter. This is one of them that became pretty popular. It divides, it's kind of a look at the Colorado economy over several decades, particularly right after World War II, where we had this period between the end of World War II and about 1980, where we had really strong growth in the economy as well as equal growth in the economy. And then after the 80s, we had very unequal growth. So let's walk through this. If you look at 1947 and 1979, we have wages plotted with productivity. And you can see that they used to move together. As productivity, the blue line, increased, wages of the workers who are doing those products also increased. Then something weird happened right about 1980, where that suddenly disconnected. And productivity continued to climb. Workers could make more product in a shorter amount of time. But their wages then suddenly stalled. You can see how the red line is essentially flat since 1980. The growth in wages has been pretty poor, even though productivity has continued to go. And what that means is a lot of the extra dollars they earn from productivity goes to profits instead of increases in wages. What's also striking is to look at the gains in the income quintiles. Between the post-war period and 1980, there was pretty much broad-based gains in all income categories. Even the lowest 20% of earners saw their incomes increase 122%. Whereas if you compare that to the growth in wages and how unequal it is since 1980, you have hardly any growth in the bottom, and all the growth is in the top income earners. Also on this infographic is what we call a suspension bridge chart. And this part basically graphs the percentage of total income that the 1%, the top 1% of earners and taxpayers in Colorado earn. And you can see it was almost 20% right before the Great Depression. And then you had a period of this really strong economic growth where income inequality fell, and there was broad-based prosperity and growth in wages for everyone. And now we're in a situation back, here's 2010, back during the Great Recession, where we're in a situation where the top 1% of earners are now capturing as big as pieces of pie as they did right before the Great Depression. So why is this a bad thing? Well, one thing, the Colorado economy is 70% consumer spending. So all the economic activity in the state, 70% of it is by you guys, consumers. You go to work, you have disposable income, then you go to your local grocery, you go to your local restaurant, you spend dollars. Those dollars then get spent by the waitress or the nursery, and then money gets moved around in the economy. 70% of it is consumer spending. But when you take 2/5 of earners who haven't seen their wages increase for several decades, they don't have the disposable income to go out and spend in their local grocery store, or spend in a local restaurant, or buy things at the local Walmart. And when you have a situation when 2/3 of the population don't have the dollars moving around, everyone suffers because there's less economic activity for the entire economy. Also, when you have big disparities in income, it means that the lower income people don't really have the ability to invest in education or start new businesses as they would when they have more wages. And then finally, we have this little diagram called the vicious cycle. When wages stagnate, workers buy less, right, because they have less money. Less economic activity means less tax revenue for the government, because we buy less sales tax, less income tax. So that means the government then can't buy the services that it normally spends to support lower income folk and support wages. That leads to increases in unemployment, which then perpetuates the cycle of when there's unemployment, wages stagnate, and have the cycle all over again. So that is the dense part. Now we got to show what the limes do. So I need a couple of volunteers that have decent hand-eye coordination. Because during the snow day, I'm going to make fresh salsa out of my limes here. If you're dropping them all over the church, it's not going to work. So who's volunteer? Come up.
I can catch one.
Come on up.
Come on up.
On stage. Come on. Give me like 2 or 3.
Closer. Do I need my glasses? I guess not.
1, 2, 3. I guess we can go here. Hey, one more volunteer? Panel? Anyone on the panel want to share?
Come on. Come on.
All right.
Okay.
Okay, so the metaphor in the green limes, I was going to buy tennis balls, but limes are a lot cheaper. Green has money. The metaphor here is, as we throw our limes, it's the act of spending dollars in the economy. Go for one. Okay? The metaphor for catching the limes, is the metaphor for earning your income. So I go out and spend my money at his business. His business is what?
Growing lemons.
It's a lemon. It's a lemon farmer. So I spend my money and buy his lemons. And he then turns around and buys your business. Business? What's your business?
Law practice.
He's a law practice, so he needs to protect his lemon portion of the law practice. Okay? The lawyer then goes by and buys Joe's business.
Right now, retired, but consultant initially.
Okay. So in this metaphor here, any business you want?
Okay.
Barber.
Buggy whips.
Okay.
Like okay. Lemon salesman, lawyer, buggy whips. Buggy whip salesman then spends his money on Ron's
Aerospace software.
aerospace. A lot of sense. Okay? So look at, I'm going to give you some more. Look at how the balls move around in the circle. As the economy is working well, there's more money flying around. One at a time. Okay, hold on a second.
Question is,
Each one.
what are you?
I am going to be the rich person in a second.
Yeah. Who hoards
Okay, so
the limes?
So the money's moving around. We have disposable income in the economy, and everyone's working, and there's no downtime because I'm working and spending my money. As I spend my money, it's income for someone else, and the economy is functioning well.
Oops. Getting overrun.
Look what happens if we increase the wages of some of these workers. We have more economic activity.
All
Let's see
right.
how many more we can drop here.
That must be part of the 1%. Because I
Here
heard
comes
most
one.
likely.
Here comes another. Nice high arcs.
Good job. Good work. Okay. So as we increase the wages of some of these people, we even have more economic activity because they have more disposable income to spend, and there's more limes moving around.
Mayhew. Tulowitzki.
Very good.
The bobble fingers.
And this is the part of the dynamic that a lot of these minimum wage discussions, they forget. They say minimum wage increases will cause jobs, but they don't look at the dynamic effect. They don't look at the extra worker who has an extra $20 to spend each month to go to his local restaurant or go to his local grocery store, and the economic activity and the jobs developed on the back end of an increase in wages, and why higher wages are a good thing for the local economy.
Oh, but wait a minute. I'm a huge corporation, and that's going to cost me a lot of money. I'm not going to raise any kind of wages. What are you talking about?
Walmart.
That's a good point. That's the argument here. Yeah, and I'm trying to illustrate that there's not just a loss in the front end. There's also the gains in the back end.
Right.
Yep. So now let's look at if you enter the rich person. Does anyone else want to be the rich person in our example? Anyone want to catch? You don't have to throw. I'll be the rich person. You want to be the rich person? All right. Here's the rich guy.
Yeah.
So now he's the Walmart profit, making all these profits right here in the middle. And as the balls go to him, instead of investing dollars back in the local economy, he spends his dollars in his pockets. Exactly. He saves them, or he invests them in developing markets in China and India, and no longer invests the dollars in the local economy. So now that our guys have less economic activity, less lines moving around in the economy. There's downtime, so there's probably unemployment in our local economy because less dollars moving around. The idea is that you can see, nice, you caught a lot of them. You can see why having a more equal distribution or having wages of everyone be bolstered, you have more economic activity in general. And we know as economists that lower income people have a higher marginal propensity to consume. The only weird term I'm going to throw out. It's basically a fancy way of saying they spend all their income, and they spend it in the local economy. They don't take trips to India, and they don't fly to Hawaii. They buy their diapers and their groceries at the local Colorado market. So having the wages of lower income people augmented, you can see why it's a better situation for basically the local economy. So a round of applause to our